edition of our Rise North America in Conversation with series. I'm Kathy-Anne McManus and I'm your host today. For those who are joining us for the first time, let me share a little bit about Rise. Rise was formed in 2017 to support and promote women working in the non-craft part of the media technology industry. And since its conception, Rise has grown to become a global network hosting events at Broadcast Asia, IBC, and NAB. Now, Rise's mission is to raise the profile of women within the sector, to encourage younger women to join and feel that they can progress and break the glass ceiling, to openly highlight the issues and help promote a diverse workforce, as well as work with industry associations to gain traction and be a platform for smaller groups as well, or individuals promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a 6-month mentoring program in place that is designed to support women working in or aspiring to work in the broadcast technology sector. And now we have programs running in the UK, Singapore, and also North America. So in spring of 2019, Rise did win the National Women's Mentoring Award for this work. Rise also has, in the UK, launched a program called Rise Up, and this is to inspire children in primary and secondary education, delivering workshops throughout the UK. We hope to expand that in the future, of course, to other areas. And Rise has been working with universities as well and key industry partners to address the lack of new talent entering the broadcast technology sector, and specifically engineering and technical operation roles. So with that, I'm very excited to introduce to you our guest today, Michelle Munson. Michelle is the current CEO and co-founder of Eluvio. And Eluvio is a software company based in Berkeley, California, creating new software technologies to address the major challenges that we are facing in scalability, protection, and monetization of digital content over the internet, using decentralized and content-centric design. Now, Michelle previously founded Aspera in 2004 and led the company as CEO until 2017, including its acquisition by IBM in 2014. She created the Aspera Fast transport technology and Emmy Award-winning technology, also used in digital media supply chain for high-speed, low-cost, secure digital content transport, replacing satellite and traditional tape-based delivery technologies. Michelle holds several patents and is a frequent speaker in the areas of content networking, machine learning, blockchain, and cloud infrastructure. She is the recipient of the 2019 David Sarnoff Medal for Technology Innovation. And in 2016, she was named the IBM Woman Entrepreneur of the Year and TV News Check Woman of the Year. And she's also been named one of the most influential women in business by the San Francisco Business Times in 2017. So I am privileged to say that I have worked with her in the past, and she also serves on the board of Avid Technology. I am extremely fortunate and privileged to have known Michelle for many years and have been involved in the amazing technologies her companies have developed for our industry. She's an inspiring leader, and I can tell you that she's always generous with her time and her support to others, like today, and is always open to share her experiences and insights. So welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Cam, and great to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. So I think that we're going to start this with a rapid fire round, which is so the listeners can get to know you just a little better with some, less formal questions, I guess. So quick one, where were you born?
I was actually born in Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas, which is in the heart of the United States, the heartland.
Absolutely. And what is your favorite city to visit anywhere in the globe?
That
could travel.
I would say that's difficult call. If it's for business, I would say it's either London or Sydney, Australia. And if it's for pleasure, I would say New Orleans.
Oh, that is a great place. Lots of fun. What's your favorite food?
I like many kinds of food, but probably Italian food that is particularly from southern Italy.
Delicious. So with that, what is your signature dish that your family or friends request you to make when you have to take a plate or when they come to visit?
Yes, this is easy for me. One of the most unexpected facts about my life is I grew up on a Kansas beef ranch, and my parents raised certified Angus beef. And so I would say that probably filet and steaks from their ranch, but that's a more interesting story in terms of how I ended up in tech.
Yeah, we're going to get to that one for sure. Favorite drink?
My favorite drink is absolutely a Manhattan.
Ah, delicious. Favorite music?
Oh, this is a special question because some of you who take a look at what I'm doing right now, our company's involved in creating a new live delivery platform with blockchain-based media, and we are involved with several live music genres. And I have recently discovered that I'm a massive fan of Rita Ora. So I'll just say straight on pop, but I like all kinds of music, including jazz, classical, etc.
Excellent. And favorite sport that you play?
I like athletics a lot. I actually do several things, and I'm an avid runner in addition to a few other things.
And your favorite sport to watch?
Basketball by far.
Yeah, mine too. The motto you live by?
The motto that I live by. I think probably the most important is essentially embracing the opportunity, being grateful for the opportunities you have and embracing them fully.
And top of mind, what brings you joy?
Living brings me joy. I enjoy all aspects of life, but tying back to that motto, really being able to fulfill the potential of the opportunities that I have in every aspect.
And where are you speaking from today?
I'm in Berkeley, California, and our company is in Berkeley. This is my home office because it's early in the morning. I'm heading in there next, but Eluvio is based here, and it's a great place to found a company and to innovate.
Absolutely, it's such a vibrant environment there. Okay, so we already touched on this a little bit, but I happen to know that you have a very interesting family heritage, which includes generations of very strong women. So I know the audience would probably love to hear a bit more about that because it's a great story.
Well, I'm happy to speak to that. And I'm sure that for some of the panelists, this may be a common theme. So my family is a multi-generation farm family that immigrated to Kansas on both sides, both my father and my mother's side. And they, because of that pioneering background, really had to overcome a lot of odds starting in the late 1800s. They were literally sod house settlers of the prairie, and over 6 generations basically built several family businesses, which include a farm and a ranch, and also quite a bit of development in the community. My family also used higher education, particularly university education, to elevate themselves. And my parents instilled deeply into my brother and I that really was the way to expand your life horizons and also to expand your community. The land grant system in the United States is a special type of university that's focused on basically delivering higher education to rural communities for their betterment. And my grandfather, actually, Ralph Munson, attended Kansas State University in the 1920s, actually, so very early on. And in my own family, all of the women in my mom's generation both not only went to university, but have PhDs.
That's incredible.
Well, and my grandmother, just one other note I wanted to sort of bring out. My grandmother, both of my grandmothers, but particularly Bernice on my father's side, always discussed the fact that they wished that they could go to college. And it really, as I'm sure many of you have experienced, lifelong learning was deeply instilled into our family habits. And I think that combined with the courage to overcome, just basic challenges, And a good example of this, I was reading a little family history with my 10-year-old son, Aiden, for a school report that he created. The first settlers, Carl and Emily, actually lost 5 out of 8 children in the process of making their way out. So, Cam, just 1 second.
No problem at all. But we were just, I think,
we're just talking about family. Let's kick off there.
And like really, I mean, we forget just how harsh life was for many of our generations, losing children and what, needing to overcome, particularly on the land, and overcoming adversity, for a better life. And just, really, really quite incredible. And the whole background of just how educated, women particularly, given the time, but your family. So I think, I might move on and ask you've been an innovator really since you started your career. So what attracted you to innovation and to work particularly in media?
Well, a couple of things. So I landed in media, everyone, simply because of my interests around the internet, frankly. I had nothing to do with the video in terms of my base education. And I would say that's one thread for everyone thinking about your career path. Nowadays, this software, and in my particular chosen emphasis, really distributed systems, internet networking, and nowadays blockchain really underpin so much of what's being done with content. And it turned out that video became the greatest source of traffic over the internet. And what that led to was that when the internet was starting to boom in 2000, all of the interesting networking problems had to do with how do you get video to move over TCP/IP networks. And when I finished graduate school in 1998, and I was starting, my career, the new opportunities around internet innovation had very much to do with this. And then following on from that, it has turned out that all of the hard scaling problems have continued to center themselves around digital content. And I want to share something with all of the women on here that surprised me or was a note to me. We all know about entertainment, but nowadays the Mars expedition, if you've watched any of the actual coverage of it, is dominated by high resolution imagery. It's gotten to the point where, our single greatest sensory input as humans really is the visual domain. And we are now essentially experiencing everything about the universe, largely through imagery and video. And when I saw how JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab, is approaching the Mars exploration with such a strong emphasis on video and camera technology, it really impressed me that this has become sort of in the whole fabric of humanity, right? And that's what drives me, along with just my interest in the problems I like to work on, to continue to emphasize content. That is also, in my opinion, the bridge for broadcast engineering, right? The view of broadcast engineering has shifted, or the needs have shifted entirely, I think, into the what you would think of as the software, the digital, the over-the-top domain. And then that means, the educational background for that is very much in computer science and software, potentially communications like electrical engineering, but really on the side of being able to achieve that, as opposed to more traditional forms of like RF signals and kind of broadcast management, right? In a more over satellite sort of mechanism, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, just on that same note, if we just look at mobility, I mean, who would 5G technology, how we're not just consuming content, but actually user-generated content. To your point, this is how we communicate today across the board. It's in the fabric
every way
of everything that we're doing. Absolutely.
Ladies, on this is really important. You've probably seen the statistic: over 80% of the bytes that traverse what we call the internet, which is really the TCP/IP-based largely fiber network that covers the entire planet, and certain satellite paths. 80% of that traffic is actually video, right? Which
Yeah.
means that the field you are in is 80% of what matters, right?
Right.
Which is extremely motivating and exciting, right?
I totally agree with you. So I guess, on that, you've had a really successful global career. So I know people would love to learn more about your journey. What are some of the kind of big decisions that you made along the way, to progress your career, especially leading you to founding startups?
Yeah. So first of all, I also want to say thank you for indulging me to get to talk about my life. I feel every person's life is utterly different and matters fundamentally. And to get an opportunity like this where folks will actually listen to your life story is precious. So thank you for that. I would say two things. I have worked in innovation my entire career by choice. And I will say a few things about this. My path has been absolutely unexpected, but my intention was what drove it. And I think that's sort of how these things work, meaning that I could never have conceived of the path that would lead from basically college to this. But I would say as early as research in college with a couple of my professors, one in particular, it was pretty clear to me that I wanted to be involved in innovation and the internet. Actually, this will date me, but the web as we know it actually became mainstream when I was in college, okay? And it so moved me the day that I remember the lab I was in when we started using Netscape as a browser to do a report on, it was actually a electromagnetic theory report that I was doing. I'll never forget it because the report subject wasn't interesting in that way, but the experience of the internet it literally viscerally moved me. And that combined with my interest was really the seed of this. Now, a couple of points to kind of get through what you're probably wondering. There were a few key points along this path, and then I'll explain the backdrop. I did go to graduate school in a field that was different than undergraduate. I had 2 degrees as an undergraduate in electrical engineering and physics, and I went to graduate school in computer science. I made that switch. It was hard, actually, because I didn't have much software training, not to the extent that I got it later in my undergraduate work. I had obviously good math foundations. Those are hard degrees, but I just had very little hands-on experience with software till I got to my master's program. I made that choice because of that, how should I say, just fascination with the emergent internet. I also had to get myself out of Kansas to a program that would kind of open up possibilities. I did that through a Fulbright scholarship. I did go to college in Kansas. This is another story where you pick to go to school. In my case, I was actually accepted to MIT, but I went to the State University because I had a full scholarship. All right. And my parents felt that the value was greater given the various factors. And so getting to the right graduate school was a big deal. I ended up winning that scholarship, and that sort of started me in literally my master's program, and the advisor that I had ended up becoming also a famous entrepreneur. He's now sold 2 companies. And I worked with him and sort of got into what I would call sort of distributed systems and the emergent innovation around that. Postgraduate school, this is another sort of chapter, right? I got myself a job in Silicon Valley at a research lab. And from there, I jumped into another university group. Through work there, I fell into UC Berkeley and the systems group there. And I ended up in my first startup founded by a professor there, which became one of the bubble companies. That company was sold at a high point to Inc. to me. And then from that point, started to work that was my first startup experience. And I had 2 of those as a software engineer before I literally, I guess, intersected with what became the idea for Aspera. One of the
That's
things
incredible.
yeah.
Wonderful mentors there for you.
Yeah, along the way. But
Yeah.
the one thing I wanted to just quick point out in all these experiences is the each of these kind of had a common tech thread with them. And also the intersection with the problem was the result of what in each of these steps, I found the problem that I ended up working on in the next step, the Eluvio problem in the course of working in Aspera, and Aspera in the course of working in another startup, just by running into the problem in the world, right?
Yeah,
and I think,
and then solving for it.
Yeah, and then colleagues though is the biggest thing of all, because in all this, I mean, I knew almost nothing when I started, and I will tell you, there's many hard times through these things because of the fact that if you're, first of all, I was the only woman in my entire group at each of these. In fact, I don't think I even worked with a woman in a technical area until later phases of Aspera, at least in a more significant way. And then also knowledge changes a lot over the starting from graduate school through some real world experience. And I can get into that in more detail, but those were challenging times as far as just getting enough competence to do what I was trying to do.
Yeah, so that's actually one of my next questions was going to be, so, what was the hardest thing, I guess, about that journey, which, I mean, is an incredible journey in itself, but I'm sure it had hardships. Yeah. Is there something that jumps out for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure when we relate to this personally, it was very, very hard because your identity is constantly challenged by what you're trying to do. The first problem is the one we all talk about, which is there are not other women doing it. The second problem is what's going on in your life personally. And very bluntly, when you're 27 to 35, you're basically dating material for all the guys you're working with. When you're 35 to 45, you're just gotten married and you're trying to maybe have your first baby and you're wondering if everyone takes you seriously because you're now pregnant. And when you're 45, then you've got 2 kids and you're basically, oh, she's become a mom. Right. And so these phases are very hard personally. And the real issue is the identity factor, in my view. Juggling is one matter, but usually you can get things juggled. The real issue is that you are who you are. And yet the identity factor in relation to the group you're in comes very much from just being a woman.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
The hardest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you touched on that, juggling, I guess, personal life, but you also, have an interesting dynamic there too with
the dynamic. The dynamic is much harder than the juggling, in my view, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you're the mother of 2 sons. I know your partner is also your co-founder. So share a little bit about that, because I think
that's another story. And to this day, it's not easy for me. I am married to Siobhan Simuk, who I met in founding my first company, right? And what's interesting about this is that we got married 6 years after founding a company together. And anyone who knows me knows that, I do what I do because I want to do it, right? But I've been married to Siobhan now for 13 years. And he and I both do our work together. We coexist as technology partners, and then we also are married. And this complicates for me everything that I said. At the same time, that's who I wanted to marry. So life will throw you these curveballs, right? Where you really just have to be yourself. The single hardest thing for me above everything else, aside from getting people comfortable with the idea that I was going to marry him. Some people didn't even know that it was possible that we would get married. We were so quiet about our personal life, right? Beyond that, the next hardest point was having my first baby. I was so embarrassed to go around pregnant. I'll just be very honest with all of you. It drove me crazy. I was so worried. Nobody is going to listen to me in this meeting. No one is going to take me seriously in what I'm doing, which turned out to be completely false. But that was a very challenging transition for me. That's much easier now, but every stage has factors where you worry that, perception rather than what you are is what's going through. So.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, because I had those, I've shared those same moments as well, which is, and actually it didn't get easier with each child, I will have to say. I mean, it was like, oh, now, because then it's like, you have 3 kids, like, how do you, there's always this, they're judging me on how I manage and juggle all of these things. And,
Yeah.
we've talked about this, Michelle, I didn't do it alone. This is where, solid, good partner, having help where you need help,
Yes.
making, so maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah,
Because,
I would love to. So I also wanted to share something. I mean, I work really hard and I am really ambitious, right? There's no doubt. I want to win everything I do. Full stop. All right.
I think that's clear by how much you've won.
Now, this said, right? This said, I'm a real person. I have 2 boys. One is 10 and one is 3. Okay. And secondly, I love those boys. And I also value my family and my we're all a function of how we were raised. But I mean, I was raised to be a correct person first before everything else. And for me, I had to really make a conscientious choice to decide what most mattered to me. And I told Cam before this, when we were preparing, that everyone quotes Warren Buffett, but he has a certain rubric that I do really like, which is that you really have to pick 5 things that matter to you. And there can't be more than 5. And you got to know what those 5 things are, write them down, and they become your guiding principles. And among my 5 is to raise good children, right? To be a good family, right? And so given that, that first of all sets an orientation with everything I'm doing. So one way or another, it's got to all work together. And then how, it might surprise you. I think it's much less about logistics. Logistics can be solved with just good planning and money, I'll be honest.
Absolutely.
And this is why women need to be paid well. I'm a
That's
huge
exactly
advocate
right.
of pay, right? So you get time. But then the second point to that is I would call it integration. And many people talk about this, but the one way I do try to approach my family life is to integrate my kids' learning with my learning, right? How did I learn about Mars? Well, my son just gave a 4-H talk on the Mars exploration, the 2020 mission. And we worked that together. And I won't, in a good example of that, the Sunday the talk had to be really pulled together from his research. I basically went to office 8 a.m. and, just busted through it, spent the day. I usually work on Sundays too. I work a lot, but that day I didn't, right? And that's, it's, you guys have good sense. You've managed complicated lives in college and whatnot. It's the same idea, knowing what to do when and making sure you do the priority things. And then I pay people to do the more administrative or clerical things and help things. And don't have any shame about that. I don't clean my house. I don't do my laundry. I do some cooking, but not during the week, right? And then I get help for driving kids around, meaning I don't drive them from one place to another. I go to every single thing they do, right? So I don't know if this is like perfect, but this is the approach that I've taken. And then Siobhan and I have to really work hard to balance our efforts. One small note on that, I think everybody has a choice about, life partners and whatnot. And I'm sure that each is very individual, as Cam said, allowing that decision to form slowly is a good idea, right?
Yeah.
I got married very late. I was 36 when I actually got married, 35 when I got engaged. And I'm very grateful for that, because I changed radically from 25 to 35.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that too, Michelle. I think about, the Cam that was in her 20s, and then in my 30s, then my 40s, and I've got to say now my 50s. So, you know,
I mean, life goes on long, right?
That absolutely. And it's so interesting, you know, the Cam in her late 20s didn't want kids at all. So, you know, go figure. So I think shifting gears a little bit, let's moving back into sort of some technology aspects here. So I know that that you find the convergence that's happening, you know, between media and the internet. We touched on that a little bit, but particularly the economics of security, which is kind of the focus that you have right now. So and then perhaps even the ethics around that.
Yes.
Yeah, around data and the internet. So yeah, I'd love to hear a bit about that.
Absolutely. So if you aren't following blockchain, you need to. The internet is going through another transformation. When I started this company, Eluvio, I wasn't sure. I really, first of all, I was intrigued by blockchain. I wasn't in love with it. I've always been in love with content networking. Okay, that's just what I have always loved. That's no big surprise. The Eluvio Content Fabric, our platform, is a global software overlay network based on these innovative content networking principles. And then it is also a blockchain, right? Now, the blockchain aspect, the reason I said, if you haven't paid attention to this, please do, because it is a transformational way of basically reconfiguring the internet. One thing, it gives these great properties of scale and rights control and media, but setting that aside, the other factor is that it really does change the custody of data. And let me explain what I mean by that. Almost every way that you interact as a participant on the internet today leaves around a trail of data, right? You log in and then you go and visit places on the web. And all the business models, the trillion-dollar companies are par and parcel. Their business models basically are a direct derivative of that. The fact that that trail is valuable because people need to draw you to their sites, and they basically trade in that data. It's how it all works. And that said, right, some good, of course, is that we have great facility in the internet to do a lot of things. Bad is that you, for better or for worse, no matter what any company says, your data and your trail is really a pawn in the whole thing, right? Come along, blockchain.
It's the currency.
It's the currency. Yes, it's the currency. Now, one of the fabulous reorganizing principles of the blockchain is that, first of all, we think of the network as a ledger of data or transactions. And those transactions are essentially under the control of the participants, which means that the data that essentially goes into any kind of transaction is basically under the control of you. And if you want to do a transaction with another party, that there is a mathematical way to do that in a blockchain that verifies validity, allows you to go person to person at large scale, right, through software, but makes that two-party transaction completely between those two parties. No middle people. It's really that simple. And it started, of course, with cryptocurrency, financial transactions, and people always talk about cutting out the big banks. To me, the far greater value of blockchains is their ability to systematically decentralize or create a way to do other transactions beyond just payments, right? And that's what right now blockchains became all of a sudden mainstream thanks to non-fungible tokens, NFTs. I am deeply involved in that. In fact, as soon as I get out of here, I will be going right back to an NFT project that launches next Monday, which is very exciting. But it's the reason I call this out. Now, let's take a step back to everything else I said. You know, technology changes in generations. And 3 years ago, when I got into this, it ties back to everything else I said. I had a year that I had mostly taken as a sabbatical forming Eluvio and figuring it out. I was also pregnant with my second son, Kieran, and I ended up deeply involved with blockchain at Berkeley. And I learned all of this as part of that year that I was basically building this with Siobhan and a couple of other people. And it was the invaluable time to point vision there, because here we sit in 2021 and it's just exploding, right? At that time, it was considered a little bit weird and rogue. It was just sort of
and kind of, what do you do? Like, why this? Yeah. It's
and then one thing I was going to tell, how do you get into something like that? Well, again, follow the universities. UC Berkeley was one of the few universities academically working in blockchain, really legitimizing it. It was quite early. And I live right here in Berkeley. I'm very close. I've done programs, and I just knew what was going on at Cal. And I just started to go to everything they offered. And that year just was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. It was also a lot of, nowadays there's a lot of self-study too. I mean, I basically, just dug in and decided to teach myself how this stuff works, and then, colleagues too, right? So blockchain is, I think, a reconfiguring factor that in the next 10 years is going to really change how the internet is. Right.
So I think, just touching on kind of a couple of things, I guess, picking up on there. First of all, I think there's a really important aspect about what's available to us today is a lot more self-learning that we didn't have before. Yeah. And I think that's and I do think that women are in the position to be able to empower themselves more, through being able to not even have to take formal paths of education. We can empower ourselves with learning now. But I think we had an interesting conversation about power itself, particularly in the professional realm, and how women can harness and influence their use of power in a constructive way to drive their careers. Because quite honestly, I will, often I will tell you that there's like, oh, she's being too aggressive, so being assertive is aggressive to men, that attribute in women. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is not a small issue, nor is it a simple issue. And I think context is everything. My comments on this will be easier than comments of women that I think work in large organizations. I've carved my own path. I work generally with a smaller group of people. And as my groups have grown larger, it's because of the product success. So there is a de facto power that comes from that. And that's honestly how I've used and wielded power, is to make things that succeed. And that has been my way. I personally am incredibly uncomfortable in political situations. I'm incredibly uncomfortable with ladder climbing situations where, and I really want to stress that there are people that are very good in those environments, and we need them. And I think women need to think about the environment that fits them, and the challenges are different in those situations. And I think the right kind of folks can really have huge positive influence through their mentorship and also how they manage their careers. My career can only be an example for acquiring power through having done or created technology, right? Now, I will say on the positive side, it's very easy. If you make things that are highly successful, then by virtue of having done it, people will listen to you. They will continue to listen to you, right? I do want to address one of the toughest things about great teams. Great teams are full of talented people, and they need people that challenge each other. And as a woman, I constantly have to remind myself not to take personally, because I work with some people that I think are extraordinarily good, especially this company. It's just a powerhouse of talent. But that means everybody is really opinionated, right?
Yeah.
And you have to have a thick skin intellectually and be able to deal with that. And that's still challenging to me. And I've been doing this a very long time, right? So those are my main comments. But I think this issue of larger power and influences, has to do with the style of it, has to do with the path that you choose. I also hope that mentorship gets bigger and better. This is my toughest thing. I just don't really have female mentors as much as I would like, because I took a very different path, and I'm trying to do better for women that I work with, right? But it's a real missing thing when you get into pure tech entrepreneurship, there are not very many women that start new technologies. It's increasingly happening and better, but it's still unusual.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's, we're definitely trying to push forward with Rise, in women in technology. And that mentorship is critical, because I'm the same as you. Early in my career, I didn't have any strong female mentors, quite frankly, because I was also on the technical side. Yeah. But I will say later in my career, I've had some amazing women who I've either approached to mentor me or have, took me under their wing. So I definitely have spoken a lot about the power of mentoring and paying it forward. I mean, I see my role now is how do I support and help other women? Yeah. Because we're still a minority in this sector by tenfold.
And there's also, real quick, I know education's gotten a lot more balanced. That's great. I think the other thing is to really have people to bounce things off as you're going through your career, as these different moments in time happen. So you can have some support to know, what are your, what are options, and then also to get yourself through different phases that might be more or less challenging, right? So, yeah.
Yes. So I know we're coming up to 45 minutes, so I'm going to just ask a couple more questions. So I guess what are you looking forward to in the future? What do you've accomplished so much, Michelle. So, what is there? I'm sure I know there's definitely a lot still to achieve, but what does that look like for you? But I want to take it not just, certainly professionally, but also personally.
Personally, yeah. No, thank you so much for asking. So one thing I was also going to say to everybody I try to very much live in the moment, right? And I really, it sounds funny, but I really hate the idea of getting old. So I try really hard to just throw myself into whatever I'm doing now and where it can go in the future. And I kind of live the same way I always have. Other than that, I have more responsibilities. I haven't changed my lifestyle or habits. I really like to be free and flexible to work on what I'm interested in, right? Which means that in that, to Cam's point, what really matters, honestly, to me, is to continue to be relevant in what I'm able to contribute and work on as in innovation, right? Now, looking forward, what does matter to me a lot is to be getting back to embracing the opportunity. As you get older and more, you have more experience and you've done more things, right? Then your network, your sphere of influence, your potential sphere of influence is much bigger, and your sphere of inspiration is much bigger. And what I would really like to do, and I'm challenging myself to do, is to try to allow what we're doing here at Eluvio to not only have a technological impact, but to have a very large economic and social impact. And what I mean by that is we literally have taken on, direct artist or publisher monetization of content, which is not a thing that has ever really been practical before. It has been on the fringes, but not in terms of large scale over the internet. And I'm involved with a lot of groups that are trying to accomplish that, both in terms that are more in mainstream media and also coming up representing, artists and creatives. And I am not I'm not an artist myself, but I feel that this is the time where things are tying back to what I said before, that the idea that the content ownership and the relationship to the audience can be made more direct will really fix the data problem which is what really is something I'm quite inspired by. As far as follow-on aspirations, I'm really interested in public policy, and I don't know how yet, but I would like to get involved in public office. I am very, very, very disturbed by the nature of what we call the political sphere in the United States. I want it to be a lot better. I don't know in the end if I will have the chance to be in that, but I would like to. And the reason is because I want these kinds of issues to really, really be changed in the right way. And I think that internet policy is part and parcel to society. So that's something that I have in my mind for down the road. But it's tricky because it's very hard to be genuine and to also run for major office in the United States. It's very hard. And it would be hard for me to not be genuine.
Yeah, and they pick you apart, right? But at the same time, we definitely need authentic leaders in this space. And so I personally hope that is something you go after, Michelle, because I think you'd be phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And you definitely, have my vote and support. So I think, I was actually getting goosebumps as you were saying that, because we need more people passionate about making change and being authentic about that to make a difference. So, that's fantastic.
Just as an aside, this might surprise you, but I discovered a woman that I didn't really follow politically, but I think she's very sharp on these issues, and surprisingly so, because she's not a technologist. Marsha Rayburn from Tennessee. If you get a moment or two, don't listen to politicization of all of things when you approach her work and efforts. She, on her own, has been a very mindful person in a very mainstream way about what's happened with the internet. And I think she has been very thoughtful on, and when I heard her first talk, I thought, wow, this is someone who's not a technologist, who is actually thinking more deeply about what's going on. And I think we need more people like that that are gonna help. Unfortunately, there needs to be a little more technology knowledge behind the policy in order to get it to really happen. Right. Yeah, and I think that's where they definitely need to come together. So one last question here. What do you think we can all do to retain and promote women in our industry, and particularly in technology? Because it isn't an easy path, and often it doesn't look attractive, quite frankly, to be able to progress. So let's round up on that. What do you think we can all do? So I'll be very frank. I like promotion. I like making a big deal of what people accomplish, especially as they're rising stars. So first of all, organizations like this, and I think one of the very sexy things about tech is that it has so much influence. And I think we need to do a really, really good job of blowing up how relevant technology accomplishments are in young women who are rising, and really emphasize that with their identity. And we all know that that sort of identity factor is really the extra, let's say, oomph. So imagine if in the future the next Elon Musk were a girl, right? That's what I think. So if you look at Elon Musk's upbringing, he's a superstar student, right? Great mom and dad, actually, right? Superstar student that studied everything. He had good, but meandering education path, right? And he did a lot of startups. He simply is in like 4 startups, right? And now he's Elon Musk, right? And I look at that and I go, okay, all you really need to do to make that a girl is the same thing. You need
the same thing. Gender's got nothing to do with it.
Who's encouraged to study everything she's interested in, coming from good parents that push and expect responsibility in addition to being crazy, right? Intellectually, right? And then educational opportunity and boldness to go try stuff, right? Through her 20s. And that's it. After that, you've made your female Elon Musk, right? And that to me is the set of ingredients. And that's starting to happen, but it's not enough. And given the fact I raised a 10-year-old boy who in his 4th grade class is first in his class. And I ask him every day, what girls are doing well in your class, right? And there are sharp girls in his class, no doubt. But the issue is that we need to bring out that pride and that curiosity and that drive in girls to go for it, right? And to not encumber them with this sense that they need to doubt themselves or hold back in their wild curiosities, right? I have one last tiny thing I want to contribute. My best friend, a woman, is very accomplished, PhD anthropologist. She just took a data science degree, second in mid-career, basically midlife. She quit her professorship to go do it. And she's very similar kind of person. And when we were growing up together in Kansas, the one difference was that we did a lot of unusual stuff that girls didn't do. We went to the math contest together, and in a small town, it's sometimes easier because there's nobody anyway. So if you're the only one doing stuff, I mean, it's like, okay, Michelle and Laura go to the math contest, right? Whatever, right? But the reason I say this is I know her way she is today. She has no fear. Why? Because she was raised that way, right?
Right.
So I think this idea that we really instill mind, intellect first, curiosity first, confidence, and then an unbridled kind of encouragement to grow that, right? That's what brings out, these kinds of, people that really are not afraid to try stuff. And lastly, you don't have to be Elon Musk to have a great impact in what you're doing, right? I mean, you got to be yourself, but I use that as an analogy to, for, what could we do to like really shake it up, right?
I love that, Michelle. That's a fantastic, insight and advice. And I think one thing that I can touch on raising a daughter who is an adult now is really that to not have fear, try, be bold, and just to support her
Totally.
to do that. Yeah, absolutely. And we need women, we need young girls to be bold and to get out of their comfort zone. I think that's
the big thing though, is to have positive reinforcement and to have, and I think when you're young, you need to have that, build that thick skin that comes from internal self-confidence, because really the world is the same for both men and women. The problem is the way you feel it as a girl. I mean, and we all do, right? Is utterly different. We are really, really shaped to please people. Right.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with pleasing people for the right reasons. But what is very different with boys is they really don't care as much if other people aren't happy with them.
It's very true. It's very, very, very true. And so I think we'll open up to any questions.
I know we covered a lot of ground.
We covered a lot of ground. Yes. So thank you. Any questions out there? Just looking in the chat, if you can put them in the chat.
I saw a couple of comments there, but any questions?
No, I'm not sure there are at the moment, but I think we'll wrap up. I don't know why I'm losing my voice. I apologize for that.
Been a lot of good talking.
Yeah, and thank you, Michelle. Like I learn something every time we talk. I know that this being recorded, it will get watched in a broad audience for certain than just today. And so thank you for the time. You're a very busy, person. So I know that I appreciate the time, and thank you for saying yes and agreeing to do this,
and
to
maybe
do this interview with me.
Cam, let me just put out, if anyone would like to ever reach out to me, you can reach me at my email address. I'm Michelle, 2 L's and an E, at eluv.io, and feel free to reach me directly or on LinkedIn. Messaging both work really well if I can be of any help to you and what you're trying to do. So thank you guys so much for this pleasurable opportunity. And I look forward, congrats to Rise on all your accomplishments. It sounds like the organization has been really special. So.
Thank you. Yes, and we're just with our mentoring programs kicking off for the next 6 months. So the mentors and the mentees have been assigned. I'm thrilled that I'm going to be a mentor to a fabulous mentee over the next few months. And, I encourage everyone to, reach out, certainly to myself as well, and anyone on Rise. And thank you again, Michelle, for offering for women to contact you.
And I might mention internships. I do have one young woman that I do work directly with because she works in my company. She's fantastic. And I would say that other internships are always possible. We mostly focus in Eluvio on software, of course, but that's another thing to keep in mind. I think that's ideal way to get real world experience, as you guys know. So
Totally. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Michelle. Take care, and we'll sign off and say goodbye to everyone. And thank you for those of you who joined today, and for everyone that is going to watch this at a later date. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kim.
Thanks.